Hey everyone, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me this weekend. This is your weekly video. It is Sunday, November 27th. Okay, we're going to kick things off with a review of last week's forecast to see how that did. We were forecasting a decline into this GAN wave blue, which is happening on Monday. We got 3 out of 5 red days this week, well, actually 2 out of 4. But on the whole, we basically finished the week unchanged. So I guess I give myself maybe a C or C plus on that point. Certainly on a holiday weekend or holiday week with holiday volume and no major data releases, very unlikely we would get much in terms of movement, especially as you can see here that we're jammed in between a flat 103 EMA here. This thin red line is the 103 EMA, and the orange magic level, which is obscured by the pink Fibonacci level here. So that's the story on the NQ. Now, before we go on to build the next level of forecast for the coming week, I want to first acknowledge the results of kind of the informal survey. I asked for your opinion last week on whether you'd like to transition to non-directional forecasts in time trades. So by non-directional, what I mean is moving away from the 4 forecast swim lanes here and going down to only 2 swim lanes, one for big moves and one for pivots. So the feedback was pretty clear and pretty strong that you prefer to keep the directional forecast as is. So that's great. Thank you for your participation in that survey. I will respect the results. I may add a non-directional forecast as an option sometime in the future, but based on what you said you're looking for, I'm definitely going to be keeping the directional forecasts going forward. Okay, so let's first take a look at the roadmap and machine learning additions that happened in the last week. So we're going to go over to Keynote here. Made a few machine learning additions in the past week. The first change that I made is I changed the look back, not loop back, look back. Thank you, spell check. Look back, there we go, period, for determining the 2 standard deviation moves and shrunk that down to 45 days. It used to be 360 days. The rationale for doing this is not to really improve accuracy. We didn't see any improvements in accuracy, but we want to allow the forecast to transition faster between low volatility and high volatility environments. The second change that we made is we separated the 2 standard deviation calculations for moves up from moves down. They used to be coupled. They used to be the same calculation. However, obviously moves down happen faster than moves up in the market. So we wanted to decouple those to recognize the fact that moves down can happen at a faster rate. So that decoupling is now in effect. Again, the purpose of this really wasn't to make a massive improvement in accuracy and precision, but it was the objective was really to create a little bit more balance between the forecasted moves up and moves down. Okay, and the last change that we made is we added monthly options expiry as well as the week before monthly OPEX and the week after monthly OPEX, and we added that where applicable to North American stocks and indices. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to add that for crypto or currency pairs, even though I know crypto does have options. Haven't gotten around to learning about the options calendar on crypto yet. So the point here is to capture the effect of monthly options expirations, and testing proved that to improve accuracy and precision as well. Okay, so those are the machine learning additions in the last week. Let's do a quick review of the roadmap. We haven't done that in a few weeks. So there's not a lot of change here. We're still focusing on usability improvement. So the another change that I dropped last week was I wanted to improve the TradingView script label locations. There was a bit of overlap between those, and the tool tips weren't as useful as they could be. So I polished that up a little bit. Still working on dark mode support, and still hope to add search on the influencers page as well. Okay, so that's a quick roadmap update. Let's go build our new forecast going forward. So what I want to share with you here is a little observation I made about GAN waves. So here we are, we're looking at the NQ futures, and we're coming into a GAN wave blue on Monday, and then after that we've got GAN wave yellow on Monday the 12th. So I wanted to look back and see what sort of historical patterns can we see here during this time period. So looking back, you can see I've circled in the white here areas where there have been highs that occur between GAN wave blue and GAN wave green. Okay, so that would indicate sometime between Monday, November 28th and Monday, December 5th. Okay, so here's one example of a high that occurred in the same relative position as where we are right now relative to the GAN waves. So that high was actually off by a day. The highest high was made the day after GAN wave green. Okay, so moving back here, we can see the August 15th high occurred right on GAN wave green. Moving back some more, we can see a high occurred one day after GAN wave blue. Moving back some more, on March 3rd, we got a high 2 days before GAN wave green. Moving back, February 2nd, we got a high right on the white magic level on that was 2 days after GAN wave blue. And there's a couple more examples here, including very, very close to the all-time high, where we got highs in this range. So a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 examples just in the last year. So basically that tells me we're coming into a time period where we can expect some sort of high is likely, not guaranteed, of course, but it looks likely given where we are in the GAN wave pattern. Okay, so that's one reason for a high. I've got two more here. The second is the Chaikin money flow, or CMF. Okay, you can see that green line down here. Doesn't look very strong, at least on the NQ. It's below zero. Yes, it has been making higher lows, but it's also been making lower highs. So it's forming a bit of a wedge here. We can take a look at CMF on the ES to see what that looks like. CMF on the ES, also same kind of pattern. We've got higher lows, but also lower highs. So this tells me that there hasn't been a lot of volume supporting the move up, and the volume is kind of steadily leaking, or the energy is leaking from the candles, because as there's more volume occurring on days when the candle closes closer to the low of the day than the high of the day. Okay, so CMF is a second reason. I'll show you an example of a CMF that would be bullish. We can look over here at natural gas, and I noticed back on the 18th that the natural gas CMF had made a very strong move up from -15 to up over 0. And I tweeted that out on the 18th. So you'll see how that's right on this little red bar here. So CMF really led price, and that's common when it comes to the Chaikin money flow. It does tend to lead price. We do tend to see volume accumulation happening shortly before we see price boost up. So this big move up in natural gas from the time of the tweet, 6.38, and the high on Thursday was 7.62. That translated to a 50% move up approximately in the Boyle ETF. So these are big moves, and this is an example of a strong CMF, right? We don't see that in ES, we don't see that in NQ. So that's my second reason to look for a top this week. The third is really Mercury speed. If we come into time trades here in the web application and take a look at the short-term waves, let's just turn off, Gann waves and magic levels. So the yellow short-term wave is Mercury geocentric speed, and we can see how that is starting to decline here as Mercury heads into its retrograde cycle. So that tends to correlate with declining prices as well, almost more strongly than actual Mercury retrograde. We can see how the declining relative speed of Mercury aligns quite frequently with declining prices. So this is the third reason why I think we're going to see a top this week, because I feel like once this decline in Mercury speed accelerates later in December, we can expect some lower prices going forward. So those are the three reasons why I'm looking for a top this week. Now, that being said, I did take a look at some of the news releases that are coming out. So if we look at ES, I've plotted those out. Looking ahead this week, we've got on Wednesday, we've got the JOLTS report. On Thursday, we've got the PCE report. And then Friday, we've got the non-farm payrolls. PCE, if you're not familiar with that, that is the personal consumption expenditure report, and that is very similar to the CPI, a little different calculation. From what I've read about it, it tends to be what the Fed relies on a little bit more than the more, famous CPI report. So we've got three pretty big data drops coming up later in the week. The JOLTS report is happening in a bearish astrology window. Both PCE and non-farm payroll are happening in a bullish astrology window. So be careful about these days. These data drops that happen during positive astrology windows can tend to trigger trending updates in the market. So just be aware of that. And for that reason, when I go to draw the forecast arrow for the week, I'm going to draw it so that the forecast top occurs a little bit later in the week than earlier. So let's draw this out here, and we can find our path tool. Where is it? Here we go. All right, so we're going to start from Friday close. There we go, 11,782. And let's sketch in a top right around Friday 12/2. And then to make it clear that in my opinion, we're looking at a top, I'm going to extend this kind of down and lower through Monday, December 12th. So I'm going to extend that down to right about there. Now, nothing is implied price-wise in terms of these arrows. All I'm trying to communicate here is the timing of a likely top. The top could be higher, the top could be lower, and Same thing with the end of this arrow here. Okay, so that is the forecast that that we've got, and it's based on those 3 reasons that I talked about. Okay, so let's go and take a look at some of the time trades forecasts, the timing forecasts that we've got, right? So when it comes to QQQ, you know, things are a little muted here. Let's turn off short-term waves. We're not seeing much in terms of a very clear forecast. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't incorporate that information into the new forecast I just drew. Let's take a look at spiders. Spiders shows a little bit of an up ramp of up pressure into December 8th, but then increasing down pressure heading into later in the month. So again, these are based on the directional forecasts, and we know that these can invert at times. So we don't know if there's going to be an inversion at this time. So we're going to go with the current directional forecast that shows potential for a move up into mid-December, and then move down in the second half of the month. So that's for spiders. The Dow has been quite strong. So if we look at the diamonds, the forecast for the diamonds isn't very opinionated either way. We've got a little bit of a gap here. So honestly, this could go either way. We're not getting much of an edge from this timing information. One of the charts I always like to look at is DXY. So DXY is showing potential for some continued down pressure here in the US dollar, peaking on Tuesday, the 29th, but then it backs off quite a bit, and you see this little hollow up here. So often, even in the absence of big green bars, the reduction in down pressure can cause the dollar to move back up, and we can see a big potential pivot high over here on December 21st. But then obviously we can't ignore this huge chunk of red. So this looks like a massive wave of weakness hitting the dollar in starting in late December, January, and February. So if this indeed comes to pass, this could provide massive fuel for a bullish move up in the markets early next year. Okay, so that's the dollar. One other thing I wanted to show on the dollar is the Chaikin money flow as well. So let's go and take a look at that. Chaikin money flow on the dollar is the green line down here, and you can see how it's even though price is roughly where it was back at the end of that big downtrend at its recent low on November 15th, you can see how the money flow has been increasing. So volume is starting to signal that the dollar may form a short-term bottom here. We'll wait and see how this evolves. If we start to see this green line turn up, then that could be a leading indicator of the dollar strengthening. So keep an eye on that. All right, let's take a look at natural gas. We've already touched on this a little bit with this successful call out that was made back on November 18th. It turned into a successful trade for me. And we can see why I made that call. It's all based on the Chaikin money flow. And of course, I did check the time trades forecast for natural gas. At the time, it was quite neutral. With some of the recent changes, it's no longer quite as neutral anymore. So we can see if we go to UNG, it's got some big waves of green here, and a potential pivot area between December 5th and December 19th. So either the natural gas is going to drop down into this pivot window, or this could potentially invert and become a pivot high. So we'll have to wait and see here. One of the things I always like about trading natural gas is kind of how it respects the yellow and blue Gann waves. It does tend to make major tops around these yellow Gann waves. So pay attention to those. It's very, well, I wouldn't, it's not 100% reliable, of course, nothing is, but if this does continue to trend up, we might see a major top here December 12th, assuming this cluster of pivots inverts and becomes a pivot high. All right, so that's natural gas. Let's take a quick look at crypto. Bitcoin is showing a pivot low here on December 2nd, and this is coupled with some moves down. So Bitcoin, of course, is, lots of negative sentiment, negative news. Who knows when Saylor and MicroStrategy and their Bitcoin investment, who knows if and when that will get liquidated. It's pretty borderline, though, that's for sure. So definitely keep an eye on December 2nd. After that date, that may be a good buying opportunity there for Bitcoin. The next good buying opportunity window comes along December 21st or so. Okay, let's take a look at Ethereum. Ethereum is showing a pivot high coming up next week, Monday, Tuesday, the 28th, 29th, followed by a pretty solid cluster of red. So it looks like the opportunity in the short term for Ethereum is on the downside here. So assuming that these red bars translate into moves down. So definitely keep an eye on that. And combine that with your traditional price analysis techniques, and maybe you can get a good entry and a solid bearish trade there. Litecoin has been lights out recently. It's been super solid. It regained this magic level at 78, flushed back down below it. There's still a pretty solid cluster of green here for the next month plus. So if you're patient and get a good entry, it looks like there's more to go on the long side here for Litecoin. All right, we talked about 3 stocks last week. Let's give them a review. I want to look at Microsoft first. Microsoft is showing a pretty big cluster of moves down here, peaking December 2nd. So that is this Friday. So let's keep an eye on that. As always, with these big with these probability forecasts, they do have potential to invert. So let's also take a look at the CMF on Microsoft. So if we go over here, we can take a look at the Chaikin money flow. Chaikin money flow actually looks fairly bullish on Microsoft. We can see how that green line is poking up above 0, showing signs of strength, even as it's, drawing out dojis in price here. A lot of uncertainty in price as it sort of sits below this magic level. But the Chaikin money flow is saying that Microsoft could boost up here. So I would be very tentative at trusting this move down forecast. So be very careful with this one. It may turn into actually a good bullish trade if this inversion does come to pass. Okay, that's Microsoft. We also talked about MGM last week. Little different scenario here. CMF is much weaker position. And let's go see what the time trades forecast looks like. Time trades continues to show a cluster of red down days coupled with a big pivot low here December 12th. So everything seems to be in alignment here on MGM between the price indicators, volume indicators, and the future probabilities. The other one we looked at was DraftKings. DraftKings has a small cluster of moves down and combined with a very noticeable gap in moves up. There's really no pivots to speak of here in DraftKings. So let's go see what Chaikin Money Flow has to say about that. DraftKings, it's just drifting down. Every time it kind of comes up and touches the square of 12 here, that's these two EMAs, seems to be a good, seems to be a very solid sell signal, and you can just see how reliable the blue Gann wave, how reliable it tends to make tops between blue and the subsequent green, right? Blue and green made a top. Okay, blue and green, okay, it made a secondary top right right on the green day here, and that was 3 days before the primary top. And blue and green, it made a top right on the green here. So we're coming into that top making time for MGM between blue and green, and it's right in that square of 12 again. So continues to, I would continue to give this a bearish interpretation and look for opportunities to get short. Okay, so let me close the call with a look at the Indian indexes. Let's look at the National Stock Exchange, the Nifty 50. It's had a great week. Look at this run coming here from October 3rd all the way up. Now it's probably time for a bit of a correction, bit of a pullback. We're seeing some probabilities of a move down here into the yellow Gann wave on December 12th, and that's coupled with some pivots. So it might be a good idea to take some profits if you've been participating in this one. And the Nifty Bank Index is also very similar, making new highs. Cluster of red bars, not very high probabilities though, but that's also combined with some pivot lows down here around December 14th, 15th. Okay, so that's it for me. Thanks for joining me this week, and good luck and trade safe this week. Thank you. Bye now.